Hi everyone, welcome to the Weekly Bump. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. Happy 4th of July, by the way. I love 4th of July, one of my favorite holidays, so I'm a little bit sad that I won't get there or won't be there to celebrate for all you US and American people out there. Please take your pets inside. Please, please, please take your pets inside tonight. Oh my goodness, I get so heartbroken when you watch the news the next day and the shelters are just full of pets. Like, please and please remind your neighbors. I get so sad. Every 4th of July and every New Year's. Okay, I have so many little random things that I want to talk about in the philosophy section today. My Chiron in Gemini is like, oh man, what are you doing to me? hopefully I'll be coherent enough. Again, that's always my fear. Let's start with the cards. Okay, first of all though, how did we do with the full moon conjunct Saturn last Wednesday? For me, that was like really intense, super, super intense. It's interesting me being here in a place where I am essentially isolated and I don't really have a lot of social interaction. You know, I do travel as a spiritual practice. I come to new places to shake up my energy and to reconnect. It's that process of continual reconnection, you know, kind of thing. So when I have no one to really be dealing with and I'm feeling the energy, I can only imagine how it must be when you guys have relationships and you're married and you have kids and you have coworkers and bosses and friends and all these people in your lives that you have to deal with. Like, I don't know how y'all do it. I am a hermit, like proud hermit. And speaking of the hermit, we get the hermit card reversed. Okay, so first of all, we have to talk about the water trine, which is happening between Neptune in Pisces, Jupiter in Scorpio, and the Sun in Cancer. First of all, I love the fact that the Sun is involved in this trine because the Sun is about self-expression, it's about creativity, and it is about the heart space. Now, it is so critical that we use this energy to our benefit because a lot of times the trine energy comes in, and because the flow is nice, the flow is easy, essentially, we don't really notice it and we don't really use it. You know, when people have really positive trining aspects in their natal chart, it's like they're just born with these really beautiful, harmonious things and they can just move and go and they have talents and natural affinities and they have just these abilities and they don't necessarily get the attention that they really deserve because it just feels so natural. Well, kind of the same thing is happening here with this ground water trine, where it is an opportunity to express our spirituality. Now, we're getting the Page of Coins coming out. Let's continue with the cards for a little while. Page of Coins is all about messages, people talking to us. Again, there's a self-expression component here. Page of Coins usually brings about some kind of an offer, something more tangible, something more real, something that we can really put our hands on. And that can be good for some of us and maybe also not so good for others of us. The Hermit reverse does indicate maybe a little bit of a challenge in the meditation process, a little bit of a challenge connecting. Now, Sun is coming into opposition with Pluto, and I think that has a lot to do with it. So, holy cow, Scorpio energy, full force, Jupiter going direct on July 10th in Scorpio, Sun coming in contact with Pluto. There is karma on the docket. There is an opportunity to access our deepest, darkest desires, okay? There is an opportunity to access the purpose of our soul. That's what Pluto really represents, is our depth, our soul, the desire of our soul, okay? It might be hard to connect. We do have Mars opposing Mercury in the sky as well, which can make kind of a more clumsy communication, even communication internally, a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more frustrated as the messenger kind of comes up against some battles, you know. Please use this time. The water energy is such a critical part of our spiritual development. Such a critical part. Three of Wands, beautiful. The Page of Pentacles, I feel, is probably going to bring about something for, see, the Three of Wands is a card of prosperity. It does represent wealth. It does represent good things in general, abundance in general, spiritual knowledge. It represents new frontiers, moving in directions that we never thought we would move, moving in directions that are better suited for our purpose. And the Page of Coins seems to be a key player in that. Keep your eyes and ears open for things that are coming your way. Don't be overly optimistic at this time with the Neptune and Jupiter. We certainly can have a tendency to do that. Not to say that this person is not trustworthy or whatever, but please make sure that you meditate on it first. Whether it's a new job offer, a new opportunity to travel, a new opportunity to relocate, whether it's a new romantic partner, you know, whatever it is. Think about it. Feel how the energy makes you feel. Really connect with the heart space. I'm going to be talking about the heart space later on. Really connect with the heart space. Page of Cups reverse. Ace of Swords. Eight of Cups and the Ace of Cups. So first of all, these are all the cards that came out, okay? First of all, to get the Ace of Cups, which is something that we all want. You know, the Ace of Cups is always something wonderful. It's always something warm. It's never something cold and harsh the way an Ace of Swords can be. This can be cold, harsh truth. It can be really a very humbling experience. It can be something that it's like, whoa, I really thought it was a different kind of way, and it ends up not being that way. And so there is kind of a tower effect that occurs with an Ace of Swords a lot of times. It's not a warm and fuzzy. An Ace of Cups, however, is certainly warm and fuzzy. But you are needing to leave something behind in order to achieve this. Your comfort zone, for many of you, plain and simple, your energetic comfort zone. Getting away, again, from the people, but more specifically, getting away from a past version of yourself. Shedding that old skin and getting into that new shiny coat. Like I'm thinking like a snake sort of slithering out of its snake skin, right? Ace of Cups is a new love, but more importantly, it is a new understanding of your soul. It is a new understanding of the souls around you. It's very much an understanding of the oneness. Now, of course, I don't think we can ever really truly fully understand what that is at our level of comprehension, but if we meditate on it, answers will come. Now is a time for revelation. You know, I Googled the chakras for Neptune and Jupiter. Now, there's a lot of different stuff out there about which chakra Jupiter is associated with. I've seen almost every single one except for the heart chakra, really. So I'm not sure. Some of you, I know you guys are super intelligent, and maybe you have more information for me. I always love to read what you guys know. But I got so many conflicting things that I'm kind of like going to be skeptical of what anyone says at this point. But I do know that Neptune was consistently placed at the crown chakra. And that is the placement of true enlightenment, true breaking free from the matrix, or true breaking free from the Maya, and truly understanding your your place or our place. And I think that's what the Ace of Cups really represents. That's what's online for us with the water energy. That's what's online with us with Jupiter and Neptune. And that's been going on for a long time. So with the sun coming into play, there's an illumination factor. You know, it's getting illuminated. It's getting made more obvious. But only through meditation. You're not going to probably really experience this through your relationship with other people. It's water, right? The 4th house, 8th house, and the 12th house. First of all, the 8th house and the 12th houses are incredibly like lonely houses. You know, they're very dark. We call them dark, but it more is internalized, you know, it's much more below the surface. So the sun coming out, it's like, oh, okay, we can see, we can finally understand, which is great. Now the Page of Cups coming out reversed does tell me that there might be some information that comes that you're either not expecting, or what you're wanting doesn't come, but something else does come. This is good. You know, this is something worth following. It's something worth buying into. Only through meditation though, right? Only through coming to an intrinsic acceptance of that, yes, this is good for me. 10 of Wands and the 3 of Coins. Creativity is huge right now. If you're not creating, then what are you doing? If you're not collaborating, if you aren't making things happen, then what are you doing? When I say creating, I don't necessarily mean materialistically, like going out and making money, although that can be a part of it. I usually see more artistic things with the 3 of Coins. Actual art, writing, music, performing arts, things that make your soul truly happy, things that convey some kind of a message, making some kind of a statement. It is the power of self-expression that is associated with Leo. And because the sun is coming out to play, okay, we've got the Leo quality there. So as it says in the Kabbalion, you know, an artist that creates a statue, that statue contains its creator, its creative essence, but it sort of takes on a life of its own. You know, once it has been created, it is its own individual life. And it is important to create things because it gives us an idea of the process of creation of the universe, albeit on a teeny tiny pinhole window type of scale. You know, of course, it's very humanized, but that's the essence. That's why creation is so important, whether it is creating a child, whether it is creating a piece of art or music, because it gives us an idea of what the process of creating the universe was really like. Now is the time for us to make our lives easier. And I've been saying this forever, and I'm always going to say it, to only keep the things in your life that are truly important. A lot of times we overburden ourselves with things that just aren't important for people that are selfish or people that aren't, you know, working on personal growth. And so if we're wasting our time and wasting our energy, then we're not contributing to the benefit of all society. We're not contributing to the benefit of where this world is really going, you know? And so we need to really ask ourselves what it is that we do or create that truly benefits the world, that truly benefits humanity. Are we truly raising the vibrations of humanity? Now that can be just meditating. And I used to have a hard time with that idea. I'm not going to pull any more cards. I used to have a hard time with the idea that meditating was really beneficial or that that was an act of service. But the more and more I come to understand energy, the more and more I come to understand that in many ways that's one of the best forms of service, because it is purely outward, it is purely self-sacrificial, and there's really nothing that the world can do to repay you for that. That because the universe is more of the mind, that is more powerful and more meaningful, and in many ways more impactful as well. You know, because I know you guys who are here on my channel probably watch almost every week. I did mention how inspired I was by specifically Mother Teresa and Princess Di, and someone commented about all the negative things about them. Like, no, we need to look at that from a whole different angle, all the negativity about those two people out there online. Like, I was like, this is so sad that we're reaching for all the negativity and of what actually it's kind of overshadowing all the amazing things that they did as people. It's all I call bunk on all that negative BS. So when I was studying specifically Mother Teresa, I was kind of like, is that really more my route? Is that something that I am better equipped to do? I have a life where I could do something like that, and I could go be, but I don't know. I'm kind of toying with that idea, and because I want to travel, and that's something that my heart really desires. I don't know if that's going to be my direction really, but it was an idea. It was a thought. Let's stop with the cards. How are you guys doing with the Mars retrograde? It's okay. I'm doing okay. I'm feeling a little bit lazy. Meditations have been hard a little bit. We're coming up to an eclipse next week, July 12th, partial solar eclipse in Cancer. And, you know, that's always a more amplified time to really set intentions. It's time for us to set a new chapter of our lives. Now, a lot of the things that are surfacing up right now, between now and August 11th, when the real solar eclipse happens, it's going to be bringing back things from last year when the nodes transitioned into Aquarius and Leo. I've been doing a lot of reflection personally, and I'll get to that in a minute. And that was uninvited reflection. I don't know, it wasn't something that I was like, it just kind of came to me. It was like, you need to think about this. So I sat and thought about it for a while. Venus comes into Virgo, going to be an amazing time for getting stuff done. There may be a little bit of a stress in terms of wanting to get things done in the material world versus wanting to get things done on the spiritual level. So you're going to have to find that balance. Jupiter direct as well is going to, I think, try to get us to push forward in a more material way or in a more outward world way. And that's perfectly fine, of course, but please do not neglect the inside world, as in many ways it is much more important. Okay? Okay. Let's get to the other part of the reading. Like I said in the beginning, I have a whole bunch of totally random, unrelated things, and my Chiron and Gemini we'll see how it handles it. First of all, I have questions for you. First of all, my first question is, have you guys ever experienced an aversion to the sun? In my study of spirituality, I'm kind of like, I should be growing more attracted to the sun, you know, in general, more and more interested in what the benefits of the sun and the sunlight and all this, but it's like going the other way. I used to love waking up with the sun, like when it would come up and I would have my room be illuminated by all this amazing natural light. And now I'm like, nope, all my blinds are closed. I'm sleeping in pitch dark. It's just the most recent 2 weeks. I don't know. Is that like a phase? Have you guys gone through that before? It's the most bizarre thing. And when I'm here, obviously this is closed because the backlight is too bright. But the sun comes in the morning. That's the east over there. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, get this sunlight out of my house. I don't want to sit on the balcony and enjoy my tea. I don't know what the heck is going on. Is that like a thing? Have you guys gone through that before, where just all of a sudden, randomly, like a switch flips, and all of a sudden you're just totally not, like, can't handle it anymore? I don't know. It was really weird. Super strange for me. That's one random thing. The next random thing is Instagram, my Instagram account. I want your guys' input, if you don't mind. I started Instagram and I've done so many different random things with it. I've been so inconsistent. I've done daily tarot cards, I've done a little astrology, I've done pictures of myself, but you know, none of it is really seeming like a good use of my time. I'm debating like whether canceling it altogether. I haven't posted in like 6 months. It's not like I'm doing anything with it anyway. But I figured that, you know, I might as well ask to see if you guys are interested in things, if you're interested in pictures of my travel or picture, you know, I don't think I want to do a card of the day. I cannot commit to that. But if you guys want to know, do the astrology or whatever, just let me know. I'm not catering to like getting a huge audience. I don't care about that. It's more for you guys if you guys care about it. I didn't like the way that posting pictures of myself made me feel. It felt very ego driven, which I'm so incredibly consciously aware of now. To feed the ego with number of likes and how many comments and how many people like me or don't like me or whatever. I cannot subscribe to that existence. It's not my vibe at all. So maybe I'll just cancel it, but I figured I'd put it out there one more time just to see. I have to talk about crystals now as well, because I'm starting to realize the power of crystals. And I've never really cared about crystals before. I think they're pretty or whatever. I bought this one in Bali just because I liked it. I bought this ring in Bali just because I liked it. You know, this is an aquamarine clear crystal. But I really didn't know. I don't know. I haven't really started studying. But I had a crystal experience the other day. It was on, well, first of all, it was on Sunday, but the day before on Saturday, when the moon was coming over the Mars retrograde. You guys, I was so exhausted. I was in bed the whole day. And at that time, I was starting to feel better because I got sick after my trip to Ireland and all that nonsense. And like I was starting to feel better and starting to kind of get over all of that. And I had been sleeping a lot anyway. But this was like a whole different level of just sheer exhaustion. And I woke up the next morning kind of feeling like I woke up tired. I woke up being like, okay, I got to go back to sleep. Like I don't even want to go outside. I don't even care that I'm here. I just want to go back to bed. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this Moldavite crystal that I brought with me. I'd mentioned this a couple times. This is just like if you can focus, it's a crystal. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's not going to focus. That comes from the Germany, Czech Republic border region. It was from an asteroid, or is from an asteroid that struck like 15 million years ago or something. It's like a greenish color. It's very Aquarian, very Uranian. I think it's associated with both Uranus and Pluto qualities, okay? People say it has a really high vibration, and a lot of people can't even wear it because it just is like, oh, it's so kind of disorienting. And I brought it with me. I don't know why I'm so drawn to it. I think it's the Aquarius. I love Aquarius stuff, like talking about extraterrestrials and outer space and like, oh my God, like I could talk about that stuff all freaking my whole life for the rest of my life, and I'd be so happy. So I bought this and I wore it a couple times, and like I could kind of see what people were talking about. But I didn't really use it for anything, but I just happened to bring it with the only crystals. These are the only 3 crystals I brought with me. So I was like, let me just see how it goes. So I put it around my neck, and I would say within 5 minutes, I was like 0 to 60, 0 to 100, whatever miles per hour, feeling great and feeling amazing and feeling like nothing ever even happened, you know? And so the next couple days I started wearing it and placing it directly on my heart chakra when I was meditating. And I was having some of the most lucid meditations that I've had in a very, very long time. Meditating here has been hard. I think it's just from being sick from Ireland and dealing with those people and all of that, and something else personal that kind of happened. But man, was that powerful. I mean, it really, really is. So this is kind of like the first time where I'm coming into contact with the true power of crystals. And I'm actually excited to go home to Vegas next month and just buy a whole bunch more and just kind of experiment and learn more about them and really how to use them in my meditations. But if you guys don't have a Moldavite crystal, I don't know if some of you won't feel it, or you're not going to vibe with it the way I do. But I really recommend, this was like $100 for this little thing. But for me, it was totally worth it just having that experience last night. And my heart chakra was like, woo, like so incredibly dense. Like I could feel this thickness of energy is emanating from me. It was crazy. It was really, really crazy. Amazing. Totally random. Next thing. Okay. All right. So a couple months ago, or I don't even know when, someone had recommended I get a Gaia.com subscription. I have actually been a member of Gaia.com for a while now, since the beginning of the year when I got back to Vegas and got my apartment and everything. And for those of you who don't have a Gaia.com subscription, I do recommend it very, very highly. I'm not an affiliate. I don't get paid for this. I just go. There's amazing information on there. And as someone who is more of a truther, I do really enjoy the cosmic disclosure. You know, Corey Good, David Wilcock, and all the other people who come, Emery Smith, all the people who are sort of affiliated and associated with that world. I'm only just starting to learn about all that stuff. And I am going to the Dimension of Disclosure conference in Loveland, Colorado in August, which I am so excited about. This conference does talk a lot about ETs and the secret space program. Again, Aquarius stuff, Jupiter in Aquarius, 5th house, like this is the stuff that I love and so incredibly passionate about. And any of you who are totally into that world, let me know. I need friends, friends that I can talk to who don't think I'm like totally insane. Going to this conference, and I absolutely cannot wait. I've been doing meditations. I haven't been very successful in like contacting other worlds. I don't know if any of you do that. I don't normally go into meditations trying to do that, so it's something that's kind of new to me. I haven't really had specific things happen, although now I'm going to share a guide story. I've been keeping this one very close to the vest and not sharing it because it wasn't fully developed. And I think that I needed to come to some kind of point of feeling secure because it felt so weird, it felt so crazy. When I was 29 years old, I went up to visit this woman who's in my life, who's been one of my spiritual mentors since I was like 6 years old. I didn't know it at the time, but she was definitely a spiritual mentor and it made a huge impact in my life. And I went up there to see her, and she was telling me all about this energy healing, and I thought it was so weird, you know, like, what is she talking about? I don't really understand this. What is this? And so she spent a whole day with my sister and I just sort of teaching us and doing a Reiki session, which was unbelievable, and just talking about it. We went till like 1 or 2 in the morning. It was amazing. When I got home, I started meditating. And during these meditations, I had this scene in my mind that would always come back. And it was like this very, very dark place, but there was trees all around. Then there was this pool in the middle. It was a black pool of what seemed to be water, but there was like flecks of moonlight sort of reflecting from the water. And at this time, I could see something white. A bluish, sort of silvery white, kind of like the moon, okay? Sort of, kind of circulating in the trees. It was a very dense forest, kind of like what you would see in like a New Hampshire area, or what you'd actually, rather more what you'd see in like a fantasy movie, you know? There's a white light sort of emanating, circulating around, and I was sitting at this pool of water. It was kind of like had sort of a man-made bench kind of thing surrounding the pool, kind of like a man-made pond kind of thing. And I was sitting on the edge and I could see this light. And over time, this light ended up being a woman. Now, I had never come in contact with this woman before. I had never talked to her. And when I stopped doing those meditations when I was 29 and 30 years old, it was because I went through a really, really bad breakup, which I've talked about before. And I just stopped doing it. So when I started meditating again back in Budapest, back around this time, July and August of last year, and coming up through my return to Las Vegas in January and February of earlier this year, this woman came back, and it was exactly the same. And it was almost like I would consciously wake up from these meditations being like, you're making this stuff up. It's just your mind. Like, why are you pulling this stuff up? This was like years ago. Why are you pulling all this stuff up out of your imagination? You know, and there was sort of a berating thing where I was sort of berating myself for not allowing the messages to come in, and it wasn't authentic, it wasn't true, you know, I was creating this image, you know, type thing. But she kept coming back time and time again. It was this same forest, this exact same pool. And eventually I ended up having like a sort of telepathic, I guess, or a meditative state conversation with this woman. And she told me that she was a moonbeam. And I thought that was kind of interesting, but the way that I interpreted it was not from the moon, but she was a kind of a hologram, and they were using the light from the moon to project an image that I would understand, because otherwise I wouldn't understand what this is or who this is, or, you know, I wouldn't interpret it as a being at my level of development. I wouldn't have understood. So she talked to me a little bit, not a lot, a little bit. It was more just she and I sitting down together and just exchanging feeling, exchanging emotion. And it is through her, actually, and these meditations very, very specifically, that I have developed my understanding of the oneness and kind of my place in the world. And remember how I was talking about Arcturus and how there's a possibility that I'm from sort of that planet, or a starseed from that planet? She actually sort of guided me there by taking me into the pool. And the pool actually wasn't full of water. What it was actually completely open. And it was open to the night sky. And what I had interpreted to be water, the black pool, was in fact the darkness of the universe. And the reflections of the moonlight were actually in fact the stars. And so anytime that we would go into the cosmos, we would go in through this pool, like it was like our portal, right? But it did have like a weird sort of waviness to it. It was very Hollywood in nature. Again, maybe I'm making that up from watching Stargate, the movie, or something, I don't know, but there was definitely some kind of a weird field wave quality to it that we would pass through. And there were the three stars, the bottom of the, again, I'm probably going to mispronounce, the Boötis constellation, which the center one is the star of Arcturus. And as I'm watching this on Gaia.com, this show Cosmic Disclosure with Corey Goode and David Wilcock, he's describing all of these entities and all these beings. Now, to date, he hasn't specifically described someone that looks the way that my guide specifically looks, so I don't really know exactly who or what this person is in my meditations, but I started to feel so much more confident and much more secure in the idea that this meditation was perhaps maybe a telepathic communication with someone from a different density, or from even a third density entity who is just much more powerful than I, I don't know what specifically, but certainly I was communicating with something that was very, very real. And through our sitting down and just kind of feeling each other, more so than anything, it was this very constant message of love and compassion, which mirrored when I was reading the Law of One. I hadn't read the Law of One yet, and yet that was what the Law of One was really all about. Again, this is something that I've kept very close to the vest because I don't want to sound insane. I think that that is something people in this world, they're so afraid of, is sounding crazy, sounding like a total crackpot. But because the spiritual world is taking such a hold, and it's becoming more mass accepted, even it still seems very, very small, but it's so much bigger than it used to be. And it's just growing exponentially. And that these types of things that I have been so afraid to say, like, I'm not going to be afraid to say it anymore, you know, because what's the point? I think maybe sometimes people can really benefit from that kind of stuff. And so this idea of compassion kept resurfacing. So not only was it in the Law of One, it was very much in Cosmic Disclosure. Corey Good, who said that he hadn't even read the Law of One yet, but these sort of blue avian creatures, that was their message, love and compassion, and that's the only thing that really matters. And then I was watching another show on Gaia.com called Missing Links by Greg Braden, who I love, by the way. He's an amazing energy, and he just emanates love. Like I get chills just thinking about it, because the level and the quality that he brings is so, like, it's so amazing. And he, on his show, was talking about love and compassion as well. And he broke it down a little bit. He's a scientist, right? So he's much more scientific about it. And he talks about the process of coming to a point of compassion. And compassion it starts as sympathy. And he describes it simply as recognizing suffering. Now, I am going to pull, when I was pulling cards before, I had 3 cards missing. I don't remember if I told you that or not. Sorry if I didn't. 3 cards missing. Because when I was trying to figure out what to talk about today and kind of putting my thoughts together, I pulled tarot cards. I was like, what do I need to talk about? What is the message that I need to convey today? And these 3 cards fell out in this exact order, just like this. Now, when we're talking about compassion, I looked at these and I was like, okay, well, this is sympathy, recognizing suffering, which is a more analytical process. And then it moves from sympathy to empathy, which is to identify or feel the suffering, which I see beautifully displayed here. And then compassion is witnessing suffering without getting lost in the hurt. Okay, and when I decided to Google it just a little bit more for like an added definition, just for extra material, I had just pulled up the Cambridge Dictionary, okay, super basic, and they define compassion as being strong feeling or a strong feeling of sympathy and sadness for the suffering or bad luck of others, and a wish to help them. And I think that little added, the wish to help them, was so critical. It again gave me chills when I read it. I was like, yes, that's exactly what it is. It's not just the recognition of it, and it's not even just about getting lost or not wanting to get lost in the hurt, but to actually have that desire to make that pain and suffering go away. Now, Greg Braden brings up a website, heartmath.org, which is an independent research institute that studies the heart and the functions of the heart. And since the 1960s, 2 physiologists, John and Beatrice Lacey, have been, there's been a series of like, what is the true function of the heart aside from the obvious? And they have discovered that the heart is an intelligent entity just like our brain, and that in fact we have 2 forms of intelligence, right? And we all know about emotional intelligence. That comes from our heart space, right? And I think we all know that. I don't think that's groundbreaking information to anybody. But they do talk about the importance of the alignment, and I talk about the head-heart alignment all the time, but from a spiritual standpoint. But here we have science really backing up the power and the benefit of the head-heart alignment, and that alignment must be operating at 0.1 hertz, and that frequency, again, everything is frequency, everything is vibration. The way that the electricity. Sorry, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist. I don't know whatever the connection is, electrical or whatever. Whatever that connection is must be operating at a 0.1 hertz frequency in order to find true peace. And through that alignment, as well as diet and exercise and all those other things, it increases our lifetimes. It increases our lifespan significantly, to the point where he was describing being in Tibet and been guided up to this monastery by a nun. And it was a very steep hill, and he was kind of breathing heavily by the time they got to the top, and he was talking with this woman and whatever. But when they separated, when they got to the top, the guide or the translator asked him, so how did you feel about, or how old do you think she is? Like, how, what do you think? And he says, oh, I think she would be in like her early to mid 80s. And the guide said, no, she's actually 130 years old, or she's approaching 130 years old. And yet she looks still youthful, right? And that has a lot to do with the head-heart synchronicity and that operation at 0.1 hertz, which I thought was really amazing. And it talks a lot about the cooperation of the cells of the heart and the cooperation of all the cells in the body. Now, when we talk about compassion and love, I think the word cooperation really, really does need to be placed in there as well. Cooperation, love, and compassion. I think Darwin, and those of you who are in this world know this, and this is not news, but Darwin did us a huge disservice with his survival of the strongest theory. And I know survival of the fittest is what we say, but it was actually in his book, Origin of Species, stated survival of the strongest. And it sort of instilled this really competitive nature, right? Or really focused on the competition of nature rather than the cooperation of nature. But when you think about it, all of nature cooperates, and we can look to our own bodies as an example of this. If our cells were in competition with one another, could a fetus ever really grow into a full body and into an adult? If our liver cells were competing against our heart cells, I mean, no, they work together, and they work in localized areas, right? Your liver does this, your heart does this, but they understand the importance of both in order for the overall function, the overall health of the body, and the overall longevity of life. And so when we think of cooperation, I'm going to get to cooperation a little bit more in just a moment. It is so interconnected with compassion as well. And now I'm getting back to when I was in Budapest at this time last year. I arrived in Budapest, I think it was middle July, or like July 20th or something like that. And I was there until October. It was like 3 months. That's how long my visa lasted. And given my spiritual crisis that I was in, I was really analyzing tarot a lot. And I got a new tarot deck, and I was learning more about astrology, and I was just starting to delve into this world. I just read the Kabbalion for the first time, and I was starting to read more about natural law, and starting to introduce myself to this whole new world of thinking. And one of the things was the role of tarot in a tarot card reader's life, and how we use these cards as guides. And they're very important guides. They are important for us to be able to interpret our intuition. But it's also, of course, possible to do exactly what we do without the tarot cards, right? Because in essence, these are simply just pieces of paper to help show us what we need to say. But in theory, if we are tapping into the single mind or the oneness of mind, in theory, we shouldn't need that at all, right? We shouldn't need those at all. And so when I was there, I would go to restaurants alone, of course, and I would sit and feel. And I would look at people, and I would try to feel what they were feeling, and try to get in contact with if I were doing an energetic reading for someone, you know, and of course there was no way for me to verify, so I don't know if I was right or wrong or what, you know, but you'd see like kind of an unhappy looking sort of frumpy old man kind of sitting there drinking his cup of coffee on his phone, you know, clearly on his way to work, to a job that he hates, you know, and not making enough money, but happy for the time away from his wife, you know. And again, it seemed like all speculation. But then there were people that looked frumpy and were sitting and having cups of coffee, and I was like, wow, that person seems really genuinely happy. That person seems like they just really love a lot of things about life. So it would vary from person to person. You could see this beautiful woman sitting there, and she would be with her like really good looking husband or whatever, and they would just like have this energy of just like disgust about them, and they weren't saying or doing anything, you know. And it was just sort of that process and that exercise of tapping into the oneness of mind, or the one mind. And okay, I know I'm jumping around a lot, which is why I made so many notes. So as I was sort of experimenting with this kind of, I don't know what you would call it, I think that's more like what mediums do. You know, mediums or channels, they can look at someone and they can just feel that electric charge going on, and they can tap in, and they're really good at interpreting what it is that their intuition is saying. Tarot card readers, they kind of need the images on the cards to help them to interpret what their heart is already feeling. It's important not to depend too much on this, I'm realizing. Definitely realizing that. And as I was going through this process, I went through a phase. I call it my what gives me the right phase. What gives me the right to think that? What gives me the right to do that or to say that? What gives me the right to feel that? You know, because it was that understanding of projection, that understanding of remaining extremely humble and recognizing when I was projecting something. That was a huge slap in the face when you start realizing when you're projecting stuff onto other people, and when you say something or do something that in some way impedes or infringes upon another person's free will, because in some way, maybe it's just a little way you say something that is in some way manipulative, kind of, or like kind of meant to sway them one way or the other without them purely 100% making up their own mind. The Italian guy that I met in Miami, I swear has been one of my greatest teachers in my life, and he is extremely good at not infringing upon other people's free will and not trying to get something from someone because it may satisfy an immediate desire of his, right? It's just more like, if you want to do it, you can do it. If you want to say it, you can say it. And what I want from you is not necessarily relevant. It's more about what you want, right? And that spiraled me into an understanding of humility and the importance of humility for the development of mankind. And it is only through the process of humility that we can truly be truly compassionate, you know? So I'm watching Cosmic Disclosure on Gaia.com, and for the first time in this series, I think I'm only on season 5 or something. I'm watching every episode, right? So I'm only on season 5, I think. And he brings on Michael Tellinger. And Michael Tellinger is a man, I believe he's from South Africa, who is creating or developing a newfound sort of system of the world, one that doesn't require money, one that is solely 100% free energy, all these kind of wonderful things, and it's purely meant for the conservation of humanity, the conservation of the environment, the conservation of animals, the conservation of energy, and all sorts of things. And it's called Ubuntu. Now, I pulled up the website. I'm going to show you guys. I think this is going to be kind of fun to do this. Let's pull this up. You guys can look at this on your own. Where is it here? So this is the Ubuntu website, and if you guys want to research it, I highly recommend you do. I highly recommend you watch his YouTube videos. This is something that I'm starting to donate to on a monthly basis. And again, I'm not trying to push an agenda, but what he's doing is trying to build or rebuild a world that is purely based on cooperation, our cooperation with the environment, our cooperation with each other. And this is why I am seriously pushing, it is agenda driven, I'm not going to lie, but seriously pushing the love and compassion message, because I do feel that it is possible, and that we, us, you and me, our generation, is here for a very, very specific reason to help bring this to fruition. Now, for those of you who have read The Law of One, you know that, or who have watched Cosmic Disclosure or whatever, if any of you have done that, you know that this sort of harvest is coming, right? Like it's here, and the people that are ready for the fourth density are going to ascend. And the quote-unquote second coming of Christ, you know, that's what they call it in Christianity, simply refers to the awakening of spirituality, which like I'm saying, it is happening on a rate that I cannot even believe. I can't even, like, even just only coming in contact with it last year, the rate of growth has been huge. There are lots of different groups, like if you guys are familiar with the Venus Project as well, which is from Venus, Florida, with Jacques Fresco. I think that's a very similar idea as well. So I'm not saying that this is the only one. There are a lot of people who have this sort of methodology. One thing that I love here is down here below the pictures. It's Ubuntu, which is an ancient African philosophy, which means I am who I am because of who we all are. Again, the essence of cooperation. Going back to last year, again, when I was in Bali and I wasn't doing well health-wise, and my naturopath recommended that I stay away from dairy, gluten, and sugar. Well, I was in a place in Bali where there were a lot of vegan restaurants, and so I started just going to the vegan restaurants because it was just simply easier for me to eat that than be tempted by, you know, other things. So I just would go and eat plants essentially for months and months. Now I had this experience once when I was driving around, and I had been vegan for, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks only, and I was kind of strict about it, not entirely, but I will tell you that that 2 weeks of not eating meat made me see animals in a completely different way. I'm not trying to push a vegan agenda, you guys, even though I do think we all should think about it. I'm not trying to push a vegan agenda. However, it is this awakening that I think is super, super important. And I came in contact with this cow, and I have a picture of it. I stopped my scooter and I stared at this cow for a good 5 minutes. And I know you're not supposed to look a bull in the eye. He was tethered, it's fine. I knew I was safe. But he and I don't even know if it's a boy, I'm sure it is, made eye contact. And I took a couple pictures of him, and then I put my phone down and I sat on the seat of my scooter, just kind of leaning up against it. And I started crying. Because here is this beautiful, and he was big, by the way. I know he looks kind of small compared to the fence, but the fence was really big. Like, I think that fence is like 8 feet tall or something. Like, it's a big fence. It's like taller than I was. He's a big cow, okay? I'd say like 6 feet tall, something like that. And I just started crying because at that moment in time, like a wrecking ball, I saw the entire process from start to finish of how all that meat ended up on my plate, and the level of what we would call like the single greatest case of genocide known to humankind, with the processing of animals and all of this, and the slavery and the treatment, and just like the incredible sad conditions of how we consume food, right? Came to fruition for me at that moment. And this was a beautiful animal, and my heart just broke. And it was at that time when I decided to try to be a vegan for real, and to do it consciously, and not just because I was sick. And it's not even really about whether to eat meat or not, but rather to boycott evil in the world, to boycott slavery. Because in essence, you know, an animal that is tethered, you know, is not privy to its own free will. And that is its right as a sentient entity, is to have free will and to go and be wherever it chooses to go and be whenever it chooses that, you know. So this was a sort of a tower moment for me, coming in contact with this guy. And I'll put it back on me now. I have a couple other websites. This is going to be a long weekly bump, but I had just stuff that I really, I felt like I wanted to say it, you know. And it is that process of allowing the wrecking ball to come crashing through our ego so that we can attain the humility, and so that we can come or become a world around cooperation. Because again, if our cells within our body do not cooperate, then we die. If the trees decide not to cooperate with the animals die, and then we die, and then the whole planet dies, right? I think we all know the dependence upon one another and the importance of one another. And when you read the extinction statistics, I didn't pull them up, but when you read the extinction statistics of how many animals have been going extinct because of human activity, not just by natural causes, but because of human activity, it's like, holy cow, how much more amazing could the world be if humans weren't such assholes? You know, like, for real. We are not doing ourselves any good at all. Now, I also came in contact with the oneness when I was watching something about the cosmos and the cosmic web. And I'm going to pull up a couple pictures here, so let me go ahead and do that. So, one second, I just pulled them up here. So, this is a picture on ScienceDaily.com. This is a famous type of picture. It's a digital simulation, okay? All of the little yellow dots, I pulled up the actual website rather than the image so you guys could see, like, if you wanted to go visit ScienceDaily.com, you can. All the yellow dots in here represent galaxies, and the interconnectedness represents the energetic connection. There's matter that has been taken into account here as well. It even says matter, known as ordinary, which makes up of everything we know, corresponds to only 5% of the universe. Approximately half of this percentage is still eluded detection. Okay, so they're kind of like, okay, well, where is the rest of this quote unquote matter or energy? And I saw this picture, I think it was on one of David Wilcock's episodes, but I'm not sure. And my heart stopped because I had just recently watched something about something else. And I'm going to pull up this other picture. Oh no, that's not it. Oh no, where did it go? Oh, I know what I did. Hold on. Which is here. And many of you will recognize this as the neurons in our brains and what the neurons look like when they trigger and when they're firing. I think this is actually neurons from an infant, the development of an infant brain and the triggering of these neurons and this energy. And I'm like looking at this, and then I'm looking at that, and I'm like, I don't know about you guys, and I know it doesn't look exactly the same, but it looks pretty darn close. And then you think, well, as above, so below. The makeup of our universe, like, and then you remember the Kabbalion, where the universe is mind, and it's like the way the universe looks is the way our mind looks. It's like so bizarre, right? So I'm coming into contact with all these kinds of things that are all sort of connecting and linking together. And when I think about the importance of cooperation and compassion and kind of this, there is this sense of urgency because of this so-called harvest that we are seeming, we're to be expecting in the upcoming, well, David Wilcock just placed a bomb on us. I don't know how much you guys really believe his stuff. I like his stuff as informative, but I always like to go and do my own research as well. A lot of things I confirm, but some of the stuff he jumps to conclusions like really fast, and it bugs me because I don't necessarily see the direct correlation. I'm like, you can't just say this occurs because of this, but not really prove it, So I do get annoyed with some of his sort of analyses sometimes, but there's some things that cannot be refuted, okay? And so when you have Corey Good talking about this harvest occurring and this potential solar flare and that the universe is moving into an energy cloud, and then you have this other text and you have a lot of things coming out, especially in modern day science, which I'll show you here. Back in last March, our closest star, right, the star that is closest to our own sun, which is called Proxima Centauri, experienced a massive solar flare, okay? And this is a flare 10 times larger than a major solar flare would blast from Proxima b, which is the planet, okay, a planet, with 4,000 times more radiation than the Earth gets from our sun flares. So huge solar flare that occurred in our closest star system. And this is what all the people in this kind of truth, quote unquote, I don't know what else to call it, the truth world, is that okay? Are you guys okay with me calling it that? With the truth world, where they talk about our solar system being protected until we can like really figure stuff out. Because we need our world to be prepared. We need our world to be operating in a more of a sense of unity, more of a sense of togetherness, and truly understand love, and to overcome the evil forces that very much exist in our world today. Like, there's no refuting that evil exists in our world. We all know that evil is just as important as good because it represents our duality, right? But I think it really just depends on which team we want to play for. And I think most of us here want to play for the good rather than the evil, And so with my little meditations that I've had, that for the first time I'm sharing with all these things that that's the one thing I love about traveling. It's not about travel for me. It's about isolation more than anything, and to shake up my energy in that process of reconnecting, and that process of, again, it's associated with my own personal natal chart, right? And moving back and forth, moving to my Neptune line, to my Sun line, to my Mars line, they all have a certain effect on me. And I purposely came to my Neptune line specifically because I felt that it was time for me to continue and to enhance my spirituality even that much more. So that's what I'm doing here. And I'm hoping that you guys are getting something from this. And again, at the risk of sounding like an absolute crackpot, I'm going to this conference in August, which I'm super, super excited about. Let me put this back. Sorry, guys, I forgot that. I forgot you guys might not want to be looking at that forever. I'm so excited to be going to this conference in August. It's probably one of my highlights of this year, if I'm being honest with you, because I think for the first time I'll be surrounded by people that don't necessarily think that I'm insane, right? And I think all of us have an interest in extraterrestrials. I think all of us have an interest in the cosmos because we know that it plays such a huge part, and that it's a huge part that has been very purposely kept from us. So I hope to learn a lot in August, and I hope to bring stuff back to you guys, and I hope to enhance myself. But for the time being, like I said, I'm pretty sure my message is going to be the same almost every week, one of love, compassion, and also cooperation. So Sorry, I had a tickle in my throat. I'm not crying. I'm going to leave you guys with that for officially the longest weekly bump ever. So I wish you guys nothing but the best. Take care. Have a good week. Bye.